Welcome back. Iran is once again under the spotlight with fresh protests at home and tough warnings coming from Washington. Donald Trump has spoken of very strong military options, raising questions about whether tensions with Iran, the United States and Israel are edging closer to conflict or still firmly in deterrence mode. Well, to help us break this down further, we're now joined by Dr. OLSI, the Assistant Professor at the Department of History, IIUM. Hi, Doctor. It's great to have you with us, especially to unpack this very important and timely topic. Now, since December 28th, Iran has experienced a new wave of protests. What were the main economic, social and political factors that has contributed to the outbreak of what we're seeing now?
Well, the main reason for the protests are the sanctions. The American government, with the incitement of Israel, has been suffocating the Iranian economy since many decades, and especially since the era of President Bush, when Bush II, he labeled Iran, Iraq and North Korea as an axis of evil. American governments have been destroying the economy of Iran. And then with the Trump presidency, when President Trump came to office in 2017, he withdrew America from the nuclear deal which Obama administration did with Iranians. And from that time to this day, Iranian economy is suffering. The American government attacks the Iranian rial, and what happened is that on the 27 and 29 of December, there were public protests by a number of Iranian shopkeepers who were protesting against the government of President Pezeshkian and were demanding from the government to fix the issue of the currency. Nowadays, to be an Iranian trader is the most difficult job that you can do in the world, because Iran is under total sanction. And let us say, if an Iranian trader, you want to come to Kuala Lumpur and to buy some kind of machines or equipments, he will face so many problems to bring these equipments back to Iran, because any government which trades with Iran is blackmailed by the Americans. And the American government does this against Iran because Iran supports the war of the Palestinian people. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, the Americans and Israelis, they started a number of wars to destroy the Arab Muslim states. They started with Iraq, they continued with Afghanistan, with Libya, with Syria, with Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. So, like General Wesley Clark has shown, after September 11, the American and Israeli officials, they made a global plan to destroy Muslim states. And the last remaining Muslim independent state in the Middle East today is Iran. And the Americans are suffocating the Iranian economy. And for this reason, people are protesting because they cannot earn enough to make a living.
Right. Doctor, I go back to the protests at this point. Which groups have participated and what are the main principal demands from what you've just said and shared? How should slogans such as JAZEXHIU, which translates into long live the Shah, how can that be interpreted for us to really understand the broader spectrum of the opposition voices?
So on 27 and 28 December, the protests were made by the shopkeepers. And these protests, at the beginning, they were not political. But then what happened is that Israeli Mossad and CIA, they started to, in a way, put into action many of the terrorist groups which they sponsor within Iran. So the two major parties which are causing chaos and killings in Iran are, number one, are the Pahlavis under Reza Pahlavi. He is the son of the late Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the late dictator of Iran, who was overthrown by Islamic clergy. he lives in the United States, and because he's more acceptable to the West and to the Iranians, Americans, and in particular Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu is personally supporting him. They want to install him as a puppet leader in Iran in one day if they manage to topple the Islamic government. And Reza Shah Pahlavi has promised that once the Islamic clerics are removed from power, Iran is going to become a Zionist state, which is going to support the Israelis and the genocide against Palestine. And
I
so
need to
what
jump
happened
in
is
here
while
to.
at first
Well, no, I just wanted to say that I really need to jump in here so that we get a fair view of all sides of the story. I bring this up at this point. On January 2nd, President Donald Trump stated that the United States will respond if the Iranian protesters were killed. And on January 8th, Iranian authorities imposed severe internet restrictions and then continued to launch a security crackdown amid reports of deaths and mass arrests. Now, please tell me, how should these developments be understood in terms of information warfare and escalation dynamics from some of the examples or the theory that you were sharing with us today?
So what happened at first, the protests were non-political or economic, then later the Americans put into action different terrorist groups which they sponsor within Iran, like Baluchi separatist, Kurdish separatist, Mujahideen al-Khalq or MEK, and the group of Pahlavis. So what happened between January the 2nd to January the 8th? The protests were hijacked by violent terrorist groups who started to kill police officers, nurses, to burn hospitals, to burn city transport system buses, to burn mosques, and to even kill clerics. So what happened is that the Americans, who have not yet settled their war with Iran, and we have to remind the public here that in June, United States and Israel, they entered into a 12 days war with Iran. They bombed Iran until they asked for a ceasefire. So the Americans used this public protest to put into action their agent provocateurs who started killing public officials. And in response to this violent war that was happening against state institutions, where more than 150 security officials were killed and many mosques and Qurans were burned, Iranian authorities, they have to intervene, and they put a total censorship in the country. They cut the internet because internet was being used to coordinate the Israeli agents, and they started a crackdown by arresting and killing many violent terrorists. So when President Trump claims that he wants to support the protesters, etc., actually many of these so-called protesters are agent provocateurs who even help United States and Israel to kill many Iranians during the June war.
Okay, Dr. OLSI, from your perspective, what strategic interest do Israel and the United States have regarding what's going on in Iran in terms of its political instability? And how credible are Iranian claims of all this orchestration by these foreign powers?
Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Americans, they have started a new world order where they have singled out Arab and Muslim nation states as a major threat to Israel. So what Americans have done in the past 3 decades, they have toppled all Arab governments who were supporting Palestine, and the last that is left is Iran. Now, after the 2 years war and genocide in Gaza, where Israel killed more than 100,000 Palestinians, the next plan of the Israeli regime is to bomb and destroy Masjid al-Aqsa. That is the first Qibla of Islam. But for as long as Iran is there, and Iran is a mighty military power in the Middle East, Israel cannot destroy Masjid al-Aqsa and to build the Temple of Solomon. So during the 2 years war against Hamas and the axis of resistance, Israel has been very successful on committing a genocide in Gaza, and international community didn't stop them, to decimate Hamas, Hezbollah, to topple Bashar al-Assad, and to install a Zionist leader in Syria. And the last country that remains from the axis of resistance, which are the Muslim countries who support the Palestinians, is Iran. So what Americans and Israelis want to do is they want to topple the government of Iran. Probably in the next few days we might see American bombings of Tehran, and the objective of Netanyahu is to kill the supreme leader of Iran, Imam Ali Khamenei. And because according to Netanyahu, for as long as Iran is there, there will be still trouble for Israel to accomplish its Greater Israel project, which means the total defeat of Islam and the destruction of Masjid al-Aqsa and the building of the Temple of Solomon, which according to Zionist beliefs, they believe that once they will do this, God is going to forgive the Jews and will bring Mashiach to them.
Dr. OLSI, is this indicative of the situation that you have painted as, is this indicative of a trajectory toward a new Iran-US-Israel military war, or is this just something in the realm of deterrence and psychological warfare?
What we're witnessing right now, we are in the era of the psychological warfare. For example, the numbers that you mentioned before, like we have 2,000 deaths. There is no official government, there is no official statistic from the government of Iran. So these numbers are being issued by Iranian agents who live in the United States, who are being sponsored by CIA and who run a number of NGOs, and they make claims which cannot be verified. So at this very moment, there is a psychological warfare against Iran, and we have Western governments like Germany, Great Britain, and France who openly supported the genocide of Israel against the Palestinians, and they were saying nothing, who now they are shouting against Iran. But what might come next? We might have a repetition of the June war. The government of Iran has said that we are not afraid and we are ready for war. And now it depends on what the Trump administration is going to do. As far as I understand, President Donald Trump, he doesn't want to go to war, but he's under a lot of pressure from the Israeli regime and Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who is ready to go to war with Iran and to burn the Middle East, like he did during the June war. And
right. Dr. OLSI, we are running out of time. So I want to thank you for your insights in what still remains a high-stakes geopolitical tinderbox. We really do appreciate your time with us and your sharing here today.